Dan Plesac, MLB Network analyst, back here on the show. How are you, Dan?
Doing good, Rich. Yeah, this should be, you know what? It's going to kind of be a contrast of series with the Yankees and the Astros, the last one, that bullpen Game 6. This is the more traditional way.
Oh, isn't it?
Two teams with each with three really good starters, and it doesn't get any better than Cole and Scherzer in Game 1. Garrett Cole, big statement. I think he's going to be the first $40 million pitcher when he hits the free agent market. Rich, I've been following big league baseball since 1986, and this spans Roger Clemens, Randy Johnson, Nolan Ryan. I don't think I've ever seen a pitcher with the arsenal that Garrett Cole has right now. He's that good.
He is that good. Are you surprised, though, that he's a Game 1 starter, not a Game 3 starter? Because that would mean he could go in Game 7. Are you surprised about that decision from A.J. Hinch, Dan Plesac?
No, I don't think so. You know what I think? It's more keeping these guys on their normal rest and their normal routine. And I feel like this has a chance. And I know that that like Vegas thinks that the Nationals don't have much of a shot. I think they do. But I think it's going to be imperative for the Nationals to get out of here. One of these two games, they can't go back down 0-2 to Nationals Ballpark because this Astros team is just too good. But this is a really good Nationals team. And we talked a couple of weeks ago, the one team that scared everybody, including the Dodgers, would be the Nats if they got in. They got in, and Steven Strasburg and Scherzer right now throwing as good as Verlander and Cole. This could be a dynamite World Series.
And, I mean, that's the matchup for Game 2, too, right? I mean, it's Verlander versus Strasburg and then Scherzer versus Cole. But it just seems to me that, I don't know, Dan, I've been following the game for a long time, too. I didn't play it like you. It just seems to me back in the day, Game 3 was the start. You got to put your best starter in Game 3, certainly if you put him on the road in Game 3. So you got a Game 7. Now it just seems like this is the version of analytics, like we just take it game to game, inning to inning, pitcher to pitcher, matchup to matchup. Doesn't matter how many times that you've been through the order back in the day. Now that's what matters. Is that's what's happening here? They got to get to Game 1 and then just deal with Game 2 when you get to it, Dan?
I think what it is more, Rich, I think in this spot is, I think A.J. Hinch, he realizes that he has a guy that's really hot right now in Garrett Cole, and he'd like to keep him on that 5-day rotation. We've made a lot of guys coming back on short rest, and pitchers and baseball players in general are creatures of habit. They like to stay on a 5-day routine. I think the game is looked at differently than it was even, say, 5 years ago or 10 years ago, where you looked at the 10-game series, the 7-game series as a whole, and you kind of strategically plan, like, what would be the best way to maximize our starters? But I think what we're seeing now, baseball in 2019 is win tonight's game, worry about tomorrow's game tomorrow, and if all else fails, we'll turn it over. We'll do a bullpenning type of game, like what happened Game 6 between the Astros and the Yankees. I wasn't surprised. I think right now, if you were the Astros and if I were A.J. Hinch, there's no doubt I would run Garrett Cole up. He's the closest thing in the sport right now to a sure thing. Now, with that said, he's due for a clunker. He's been unbelievably good for almost 3 months. But I think if I were A.J. Hinch, I probably would do this. When you have two guys like Cole and Verlander, the guy that surprised me, Rich, Zach Greinke hasn't been as good in an Astro uniform as I thought he was going to be. I thought at the trade deadline when they acquired Zach Greinke, I thought it was over. Just mail it in. The Astros were going to get to the World Series, and they were going to win it easily. Zach Greinke hasn't been the Zach Greinke that we're used to. So Game 3 isn't exactly, I think, if you look at it like, I would almost favor Patrick Corbin over Zach Greinke in a Game 3.
And that's going to be in Nationals Park next week, coming up right here on the Rich Eisen Show later on this week. Dan Plesac of the MLB Network right here on the show in the Honda Insider Report. So we've been so deep into how the Yankees match up with Houston and vice versa because we saw that ALCS on the horizon for weeks and months. How about the Nats? How do they match up with Houston in your estimation, Dan?
Rich, they're a hot team right now. Howie Kendrick is swinging the bat really well. The nation's going to get a chance to see what a great player Anthony Rendon is. He's also a free agent. He's a terrific player. And Juan Soto, the left fielder for the Nationals. 3 dynamic players right now. Zimmerman has really swung the bat well. This is a Nationals team right now that everybody feared if they got in, they got hot because of their starting pitching. But I think what has surprised everybody, and myself included, they could hit. They could hit and they could score some runs. I'm looking at this series. you're always looking for those two X factor guys. I just think the starting pitching is so good in both of these teams. When you go to the bullpens, and I think one guy from each team is going to determine who wins this series. Will Harris might be the most underappreciated reliever on the Houston Astros team. Everybody wants to talk about Ozuna in the back end of the bullpen, and I think, to me, Will Harris is the one guy that they can bring in the seventh and or eighth with guys on base. You can bring him in traffic. He's pitched great baseball for the Astros for 3 or 4 years. I think he's going to have to come up really big. And on the flip side for the Nationals, Sean Doolittle's thrown the ball much better since he came off the injured list with that bum knee. If Will Harris and Sean Doolittle, to me, they're going to be the keys to both of these bullpens. And I think either one of these two guys, yes, I think it's one of these two teams a better chance to win.
And then it's the first postseason ever to feature 5 of the top 10 pitchers in strikeouts. I mean, my gosh, as we all know, it's a walk, strikeout, home run league. Which team's better at putting the bat on the ball, do you think? Just contact.
I think the Astros are a little bit better putting the ball in play. I don't think sometimes we gave that Yankees pitching staff enough credit. That Yankees staff threw the ball really well in that series. I look at this Astros team. You could talk about Michael Brantley puts the ball in play. Bregman puts the ball in play. George Springer at times gets a little bit free swinger, but he can put the ball in play.
Okay.
This is an Astros lineup that didn't hit. They hit under 200 against the Yankees. But I think if you're going to talk which team is better offensively, I think the Astros are better offensively, and they put the ball in play a little. I think you'll see fewer strikeouts from the Astros than you will from the Nationals.
Dan Plesac, a couple more minutes left with MLB Networks. Dan Plesac here on the Rich Eisen Show. Guys, name me the guys on both rosters. They don't play or pitch another game in the major leagues. They're Hall of Famers. What do you got for this World Series?
Verlander he's pretty much a cinch he's in.
Right.
Max Scherzer is more than likely in. Those two would be the only two that I would say right now that would be slam dunks to be in.
Not Altuve?
Bregman's on his way to the Hall of Fame highway. I mean, obviously he's at the beginning of his career.
What about Altuve?
I look at these two teams. They're the best two teams right now. They're the best two teams. And, some people think I think the coolest thing so far, Steven Strasburg has kind of changed that narrative. Everybody wants to go back to that series against the St. Louis Cardinals a few years ago where he wasn't a part of. He's really been a terrific postseason pitcher, and he has a chance in this World Series to make everybody forget about not pitching in the postseason a few years ago.
Right.
He's been throwing the ball great. He's one of the top 10 pitchers in the sport, and I know he can flip the narrative. This guy's throwing the ball great right now.
What about Altuve? I think he's a Hall of Famer if he doesn't swing the bat anymore. And as a Yankee fan, I wish he didn't. What do you think?
I do too. And you know what? He's another thing that is so beautiful about the game of baseball. You don't have to be 6'3", 215 pounds. He's 5'6", maybe. You saw the home run off of Aroldis Chapman. It's just amazing how such a small guy can have such a big impact on a game. He's the one guy, and I know a lot of people talk about Bregman, the third baseman. But if I were an imposing pitcher and had nowhere to go and one guy I would least want to face, I would not want any part of Altuve. He's the best bad ball hitter in the game. He hits good velocity. He hits good breaking balls. He has the flair for dramatics, and I think you're onto something. If he can keep this up for a few more years, he might be right on the Hall of Fame highway.
And last one for you, a moment for me. You're Brian Cashman. What do? Do you pay Cole all that money? What's the maneuver to try and get past this Houston team and stay in front of a Red Sox team or a surging Rays team? What do you do if you're Cashman after what you just saw?
He's the guy. I think that the Yankees matched up. They were really even, Steven, with the Astros. But when it came down to it, I thought that the reason that the Astros won that series, they were able to win 2 out of 3 games in Yankee Stadium. And the game that Garrett Cole pitched, he didn't have his best stuff, but he gutted through 7 innings. And I think that's the one thing that the Yankees are missing right now. Tanaka, big game pitcher. Severino, you would expect if he's healthy next year, he's at least a number 2. But if they could get Garrett Cole, one that would wink at the Astros and make the Yankees that much better, I think that's what they're missing, Rich. They're missing that go-to guy. And there aren't very many of them, but Garrett Cole is one of those guys.
Dan, thanks for the time. Enjoy the series. It's going to be great. I can't wait to sit back and watch some of it, too. And we'll get you on another time as much as you'd like.
You got it, Rich. Anytime.
You got it. You got
Enjoy
it.
the show.
You right back at you. Again, Dan It's part of MLB Network's World Series coverage, live from Minute Maid Park and Nationals Park before and after every World Series game.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.